Today we're going to disassemble the M&P 9 Shield Plus slide. So we're going to remove the slide from the frame and disassemble the slide completely for cleaning purposes. So first, as usual, we verify that the firearm is completely unloaded, no round in the chamber, and no magazine is in the firearm. So now we need to field strip the gun and remove the slide. So with the slide locked back, rotate the takedown lever as so. Let the slide forward, press the trigger, and the slide will come off of the firearm, just like that. And now we're going to remove the recoil spring and guide rod assembly and lift out the barrel. Alright, so now we have the slide. We're going to remove the firing pin assembly first, and the way to do that is to remove this slide cover plate on the back. But you can't do that because there is pressure from the striker spring inside. It's pressing up on a spacer in there, so we need to remove that pressure. All we need to do is take a small screwdriver. So all you need to do is go in here and press down on this white piece, on this white plastic piece, and while you're pressing down on it at the same time, push the cover plate up and you'll see it's starting to come off. So you can push that all the way off. Keep your thumb over there because there is spring pressure, and make sure that this does not pop up and hit you in the face. Alright, once the cover plate is removed, what you need to do next is press down on this plunger until you hear a click, and then your firing pin will be released. Pull that out. Alright, now that we have removed the firing pin, you'll notice that the firing pin plunger is still in place. And in order to remove that, you will need to remove the rear sight, which I highly do not recommend doing unless you really need to get in there and clean this. So what we can do to avoid removing that, we can use Gun Scrubber by Birchwood Casey, which is a aerosol cleaner that we can spray in here that will help clean out any debris or any buildup that is in there. So we're going to do that instead of pulling this out, because this is Loctited in. You're going to have to heat this up and really crank it off. Then you're going to have to pound this out of this dovetail slot here, which is a whole lot of extra work, and you're probably going to end up dinging the side of your sights. I would not recommend doing that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the extractor, which is held in by this very small pin right here. You want to get yourself a 1/16 punch, which is pretty tiny, and something like a Real Avid bench block to put it on, so that when you push the pin out, it has a place to go. So as you can see, the other side of that pin is hidden by the optical cover. So this is just a Torx number 8 to get these screws out of here. So you're going to want to get these out. These are Loctited in also, but they're not Loctited with the red Loctite. They're just tight, but they're not impossible to get out. So just pull these out. Remove your optical cover, and then you're going to see the other side of that pin that holds that in there. So I'm just going to set this on my smart bench block here, which won't mar or damage the finish of your gun. I'm just going to set it on a sturdy spot here, get my 1/16 punch, line it up on the hole. I'm just going to lightly tap on that. Alright, and as you can see, the pin's coming out. Hold it over the hole. Alright, and I'm going to push that all the way out. So now the pin has been knocked out, and the punch is taking the place of that pin. So it is still holding the extractor in place. So what you want to do is put your finger here so the extractor doesn't come out till you're ready. Remove the pin punch. Alright, and now you have the spring for the extractor pushing it out. You also need to be careful. There's another spring involved here that you're going to see in a moment, and you want to make sure you cover the top of this extractor. There's your extractor spring, and the other spring I'm talking about is a spring that is right inside here, and this puts pressure on the pin that goes through there to kind of keep the extractor in place. This will go flying across the room, which I know firsthand, because for the first time I took this apart, it did, and it took me a half an hour to find it. So keep your finger over that. If you want to take this out, you can, but I'm telling you to be very careful. Put your thumb over the spring. It just comes out like that. All right, so it's a little spring with a little piece of plastic that goes in there. All right, so those are the extractor parts and the firing pin parts. Now the firing pin does come apart a little bit further. All right, so to take this apart, just set it in something that holds it up off the table like that. Grab the spring, press down on the spring, and this cup will come up, and the cup will slide off of the pin, and then gently let go of the spring, and it'll come right up off of the pin, and then the spacer comes off along with this secondary little spring there. All right, and there are all your pieces. Okay, so now we're just going to clean up all the pieces in the slide here, and I'm going to use a pipe cleaner, some cotton swabs. I love these with double tips. They got a big end and a pointy end for getting in all the tight spaces. I use these Otis pipe cleaners, and these are the cotton swabs that I like to use. I'll put links down in the description if you're interested in these. And just a cut up t-shirt is what I use for wiping things down. I'm just going to wipe everything down. You don't need to lube any of these. You just want to make sure that there's no buildup on any of these parts. Get them more or less clean. You can use the cotton swab, clean everything up real good. And this piece here, just clean these little slots where the spring goes. I clean that little pinhole there. And if anything's dirty on the inside, these springs don't really get too dirty, but you can use a pipe cleaner or the cotton swabs to get everything nice and wiped down. This is really tiny. Wipe that down a little bit. Okay, once you get all the pieces wiped down, you go to the slide next, and we just want to kind of clean this up a little bit. We definitely want to clean up in the firing pin slot here. So I'm just going to get a cotton swab and kind of clean up all these areas. I'm not going to clean the whole slide. That'll be covered in the cleaning video for the entire gun, but I'm just going to get the critical areas where the firing pin and the extractor go that we are just dealing with right now. Clean in the firing pin channel and get all the crud out of there. Last thing I like to do is run a pipe cleaner down there, out through the breech face, make sure there's nothing built up in there. And then I'll clean the actual breech face. And on the extractor, of course, you want to make sure that the hook part right here is especially clean. That's where the extractor grabs onto the brass, so you want to make sure that's nice and clean. And once everything is wiped down, we're just going to reassemble. Before we put everything back together, I'll show you how I clean this one last area here. I'll show you how I get some aerosol gun cleaner and spray it right down into this area inside the slide that we didn't want to take apart. Okay, so we're out in the garage now. I want to clean this little area with a plunger right here that we didn't want to take off because we didn't want to mess with the rear sight. So to get that little area, you can see down in there, there's a little spot you can actually kind of get to. So I'm going to use some Birchwood Casey gun scrubber, which I use sometimes to clean guns out in the garage. It's a little messier than cleaning in the house. And I'm just going to spray some of this into that little area there. And the gun scrubber it'll evaporate all by itself. Just give it a minute and then just wipe off any residue on there. I would avoid spraying any of it directly onto your sights. All right, so now we can go in and put it back together. Okay, so now we're going to start the reassembly, and first we're just going to reassemble the firing pin assembly. So just get the firing pin, put on this secondary spring, it doesn't matter which way, and then slide the firing pin into the spacer. Now it does fit a certain way, okay, so that the shape of the metal fits the shape of the spacer, especially on this side right here. There's that flat side there. Alright, so it goes on like that. Then the spring slides on there, doesn't matter which end. And then we have this little cup here. So to get that back on, we want to put this back on the bench block. So you're supporting the lug at the bottom like that. Pinch the spring and push it down well past this thinner part here. And get your little cup. Put the cup on there like that, and then allow the spring back up. Oops, not like that. Allow the spring back up to capture the cup on there like that. This lug should be sitting in the spacer just like that. Alright, now to put the little spring assembly back into the extractor, it's going to go in this side, and it sits in this orientation. So that is going to end up going into that slot like that, although with the spring obviously fitting in here. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can either put it in like this, get a screwdriver and kind of force that, keeping your thumb over that so that if it gets away it doesn't go flying across the room. Pop it in that way. Just make sure it's all the way in there. Be careful when you remove your finger. It should end up looking just like that. The other way you can try to do it, if that's a little tricky, you could try putting it in this side first. Seat the spring in there like that. Put your thumb over there. Make sure this is sitting that. And then take maybe a little bit bigger pin punch that can fit right in the slot on the end of that little plastic piece. And just gently move that forward, compressing the spring until you can push it back down into the slot like that. That might be a little bit easier. I've had better luck doing it that way than the other way, but both ways seem to work. Alright, now we want to put the extractor back into the slide. And the way the extractor fits in here, the extractor fits in like this. There's a little piece that hangs down here, so you kind of have to put that inside first and then kind of bring it around like that. So that's what we're going to do. Whenever you're handling this extractor, be extremely careful about this spring and this little plastic piece in here, because they will go launching across the room. Be very careful about that. So what we want to do, put the slide on its side, take the extractor spring and drop it in so it's sitting like that. Take the extractor, hook it around like that, and then bring it over and make sure it's sitting right on that spring there. Alright, so now put something white underneath so you can see through this hole here. Alright, so we want to turn it over, and you want to squeeze this down and move it around until you see straight through this hole. Make sure that hole is perfectly round. You don't want it like that, and you don't want it like that. You want a perfectly round hole there. You're going to have to press on this and hold it to make sure that that hole stays open. Let's get my little bench block here. Make sure we have a straight shot through there. While we put the pin, while we start the pin there, then we want to just start pounding that through. And that's enough to kind of hold the extractor in place. So now we're going to need to get our pin punch and continue pushing that down. Pound this in until that is flush with the bottom. Alright, that's flush with the bottom. That's flush with the top. When we press out on the extractor claw right here, it comes out against spring pressure. We can feel everything looks good. Okay, now that the extractor's back in, we just want to put the optics cover back on. Again, that's with your Torx number 8. Screw that in with your Torx number 8 screwdriver. Get that nice and snug. Alright, now the next thing we want to do is put the firing pin back in. Make sure that your firing pin and spacer look just like that. Okay, and then this only goes in one way. Goes right through the channel here. Lines that up. And then that's only going to go so far. You just need to press down on the safety plunger to get it past the safety plunger. Push that in a little bit more. About like that. And now we just need to get the back cover back on there. The back cover will slide in like this, but you're going to have to press down on that spacer to allow that to slide up. So you get it in there like this, put a little bit of pressure with this finger, take a little bit bigger pin punch, and just press down on the spacer until you get it to that point. And then once you get it there, you should be able to just press that and snap it back into place. Alright, and then you can kind of test things here by pressing back on this lug. Don't let go of it and let it snap forward. Just press it back, make sure there's good spring pressure there. All right, make sure that this plunger pops back up under spring pressure when you press on it. Okay, and the other thing you can test is, so looking at the breech face, you want to make sure that when you press on this firing pin forward, it doesn't come through the hole here, unless you are also pressing on this safety pin, and then when you press this, it'll allow the firing pin to poke through the breech face like that. And when you let go, you shouldn't be able to. All right, that's a safety feature. All right, so now we have the slide all back together. Now you just need to drop in your barrel, drop in your recoil spring and guide rod, then line it back up on your frame. Slide it on, slide it all the way back, lock it in place with the slide stop, rotate your takedown lever, release the slide, make sure it feels right. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is a function and safety check. I'll put a video up here in the corner so you can just run through a couple quick tests to make sure everything's working on your Shield Plus. If you found this video valuable, please check out the links below for all the products that we used in this video, and please subscribe, hit like below, and thank you for watching.